now publishes The Education as it was printed in 1907, with only such marginal corrections as the author made. And it does this not in opposition to the author's judgment, but only to put both volumes equally within reach of students who have occasion to consult them. Henry Cabot Lodge, September 1918. Preface. Jean-Jacques Rousseau began his famous Confessions by a vehement appeal to the deity. I have shown myself as I was, contemptible and vile when I was so, good, generous, sublime when I was so. I have unveiled my interior such as thou thyself hast seen it, eternal Father. Collect about me the innumerable swarm of my fellows, let them hear my confessions, let them groan at my unworthiness, let them blush at my meannesses. Let each of them discover his heart in his turn at the foot of thy throne with the same sincerity, and then let any one of them tell thee, if he dares, I was a better man. Jean-Jacques was a very great educator in the manner of the 18th century, and has been commonly thought to have had more influence than any other teacher of his time. But his peculiar method of improving human nature has not been universally admired. Most educators of the 19th century have declined to show themselves before their scholars as objects more vile or contemptible than necessary, and even the humblest teacher hides, if possible, the faults with which nature has generously embellished us all, as it did Jean-Jacques, thinking, as most religious minds are apt to do, that the Eternal Father himself may not feel unmixed pleasure at our thrusting under his eyes chiefly the least agreeable details of his creation. As an unfortunate result, the 20th century finds few recent guides to avoid or to follow. American literature offers scarcely one working model for high education. The student must go back, beyond Jean-Jacques, to Benjamin Franklin to find a model even of self-teaching. Except in the abandoned sphere of the dead languages, no one has discussed what part of education has, in his personal experience, turned out to be useful and what not. This volume attempts to discuss it. As educator, Jean-Jacques was, in one respect, easily first. He erected a monument of warning against the ego. Since his time, and largely thanks to him, the ego has steadily tended to efface itself, and, for purposes of model, to become a mannequin on which the toilet of education is to be draped in order to show the fit or misfit of the clothes. The object of study is the garment, not the figure. The tailor adapts the mannequin as well as the clothes to his patron's wants. The tailor's object in this volume is to fit young men in universities or elsewhere to be men of the world, equipped for any emergency, and the garment offered to them is meant to show the faults of the patchwork fitted on their fathers. At the utmost, the active-minded young man should ask of his teacher only mastery of his tools. The young man himself, the subject of education, is a certain form of energy. The object to be gained is economy of his force. The training is partly the clearing away of obstacles, partly the direct application of effort. Once acquired, the tools and models may be thrown away. The mannequin, therefore, has the same value as any other geometrical figure of 3 or more dimensions, which is used for the study of relation. For that purpose it cannot be spared. It is the only measure of motion, of proportion, of human condition. It must have the air of reality, must be taken for real, must be treated as though it had life. Who knows? Possibly it had. February 16th, 1907. The Education of Henry Adams, Chapter 1. Quincy, 1838 through 1848. Under the shadow of the Boston State House, turning its back on the house of John Hancock, the little passage called Hancock Avenue runs, or ran, from Beacon Street, skirting the State House grounds, to Mount Vernon Street on the summit of Beacon Hill. And there, in the third house below Mount Vernon Place, February 16th, 1838, a child was born and christened later by his uncle, the minister of the First Church, after the tenets of Boston Unitarianism, as Henry Brooks Adams. Had he been born in Jerusalem, under the shadow of the temple, and circumcised in the synagogue by his uncle the high priest under the name Israel Cohen, he would scarcely have been more distinguished.